All right, we are back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We've got so much to break down after the Brickyard 400, including a historic win for Bubba Wallace there, and the biggest one of his career, just how good Connor Zilic is. We'll talk about some big driver news that came out of Indy, maybe one expected and maybe one big faux pas. We'll give you an update on the 2026 schedule and also talk about a big shift in ownership in IndyCar. Strange bedfellows? Maybe. All of that here on 5 to Go. Y'all like our theme song? It's called Ambient Noise. Welcome to, I think this is episode 324. If I was a good host, I'd have looked that up on the 5 to Go podcast. I'm your co-host, Doug Fireball Turnbull, from the announcing team at Performance Racing Network. And although this was an IMS radio race at IndyCar, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this past weekend, our PRN crew, or some parts of them, have just gotten done doing 3 races in a row. I was not on any of those. I'll be back at Bristol in September. Also write Gridlock Guy column for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and help Rachel Cox Rosenau with traffic on 11 Alive News here in Atlanta every single weekday, and we're all swamped with back-to-school stuff. In fact, a lot of you, especially if you're from Georgia, where a lot of Metro Atlanta goes back to school soon, are going to have that on your mind. But NASCAR never took a summer break, and they're just going to keep chugging on into the fall. So welcome to the show, and so glad to be with you. Let's bring in our panelists already. I sometimes leave them hanging too long. First off, he's the best-dressed guy here, as always. He is our roving racing journo, and we'll find out in a second how many days till graduation from University of North Georgia, our multimedia enthusiast, our super racing fanalist, and back from Indy, Devin Kupka. Do we hear graduation bells?
Yes, I actually just got an email from the University of North Georgia saying they've moved me from as a student in the system to a graduate student, or not a graduate student, but a graduate. So no longer a student there, but hey, you want to know a funny story? I finished my last school assignment. It was a test inside the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Media Center, and I got up in the middle of it to go interview William Byron in the middle of the test, and I got a 98 on it. So
come on.
William Byron did not give me any answers to the test.
William Byron knew all about doing dual enrollment, because he did high school and Liberty University courses as a NASCAR driver. Devin, congratulations. Is there a ceremony, or do you just get an email?
I just got an email. We had a little bit of a ceremony a few months ago, a graduation party here with Drew, who graduated high school in May, and then I just graduated. So we just kind of conjoined them since they were close together. So we had something about 2 months ago, but UNG, they got rid of their summer commencement. They didn't let me walk in the spring semester, so I got to wait till winter, and we'll see if I do that or not. But I'm okay.
So all I heard there is, Dan Elliott, you and I didn't get invited to Devin's graduation party, and that's fine because you got to draw a line somewhere. Obviously, Devin knows who the Riff and the Raff are. So speaking of, congratulations, Devin. Before we introduce Dan properly here, congratulations to you. We're so happy for you, college graduate, and now. Anyone listening need some media expertise, get my boy a job. 5 to Go does not pay. Not only does it not pay the bills, it doesn't even buy you a fish sandwich at Culver's, okay? So, sorry. So, y'all get my boy paid, okay? That's your job, not mine. I'm giving you Devin. You give him a job. There it is. Because I'm giving you Devin. Okay. Coming up here, we got Dan. Master Maker of Speed, 2018 Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee, part of that legendary number 9 Melling team there. And he's got a wonderful drip shirt on as well. Sir, how are you surviving the summer heat?
I'm getting ready to crack open this RC and celebrate Devin's graduation. And it and a moon pie will go exactly well together. So I'm just glad you didn't invite me if graduation was going to be in the heat of the summer, because I've been up there and nearly piced out for one of those. So I know what that's all about. And if you do walk this fall, that'll be most excellent.
Yeah, well, we definitely will work our way up there if we can. Other big, and let me just say now, other big North Georgia happenings, though, and we're going to talk about it more in depth and go into the inductees next week, all right? Because we got so much on our plate this week. But the Georgia Racing Hall of Fame, Saturday, 1 to 4 p.m., 2025 class being inducted. I'll be helping MC the ceremonies there. Among those being inducted, Mike Helton. And I'm not sure. I haven't heard if he's going to be in the premises or not, but he does have major Atlanta ties, so I would hope that Big Mike shows up there. Who knows? I might even get away with calling him Killer Mike. All right, because that totally fits, right? But no, if you can still buy tickets, just Google Georgia Racing Hall of Fame. I think it's GARRFF RHOF.com, but don't type that. Just Google Georgia Racing Hall of Fame, and you can buy tickets there. They're about 30 or 40 bucks. Devin's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Dan, I'm not going to put you in the spot, but no, you're welcome there. All right. And if Dan shows up, all three of us will race on the brand new, less than a year old racing simulators that Cody Dinsmore installed. And you will see Devin do well. You'll see me do terribly. And Dan, how would you do?
I would do extremely well.
Extremely well. That's ahead of you, Devin. All right.
And then the after party will be at the McDonald's.
And the after party will not be at the pool room, apparently. It'll be at the McDonald's.
Across the parking lot in the new grand opening McDonald's.
Not the Bojangles.
Not the Bojangles.
The McDonald's. Okay.
They X'd out Bojangles and they hand wrote in McDonald's.
So it is replacing the Bojangles.
Correct. It's in the same building. It's completely being renovated now, and I'm talking about they gutted the whole thing, tore up the parking lot, all. It is going to be a whole different facility.
And that is in honor of, in 2026, rumor is that Ronald McDonald will be a Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee there. And I'll get to meet him. That was so cool. All right. So, let's get into it, guys. One thing is I got to bookending my just over-the-top fun, over-the-top spirit-led, truly spirit-led trip with our high schoolers. The fourth time I've gotten to go with my senior guys to Daytona Beach with about 3,500 or 4,000 other high schoolers for this really great camp called Inside Out Camp, basically. Inside Out is the name of the high school organization and at the mega church I attend, and the campus I'm at is Decatur City. And we had a big old time. I bookended that trip with trips to Dixie Speedway. All right. I don't get to go to Dixie very often. I went once last year, and it had been like 9 years before that, but I've gone twice this year, having back-to-back weekends. A buddy Taylor was there, had some other people, Brett, a former coworker of mine. He was up there with his family, and it was awesome. But here's something I had never done before, and I'm going to ask you, Dan, because a long time ago you raced there, all right? Have you ever done the trackside parking at a dirt track?
No, but I would imagine that if you did, you might get pelted with a lot of mud.
Buddy,
yeah.
Buddy, I had never done it. Now I knew you get dusty and kind of dirty
No.
if you're in the grandstands and it's a dry track. So here's the deal. We were already out there kind of getting hit with dirt and stuff. And then there was this rain shower that I'm pretty sure only hit turns 1 and 2. I mean, the way it felt, it may have gotten 3 and 4 a little bit, but it was just a quick rain shower. And then it got all sticky and nasty. All the snacks, everything was just covered in this sheen of Georgia red clay. All right. And then they got back racing, which I told everybody, I was like, guys, I think they're done. I mean, it's a dirt track. You really can't get it wet and then prepped and back going. And I thought we're just going to go straight to minivan demo derby. I was sad. I wasn't going to see any sprint cars race. They had the USCS sprint cars. So, Dan, the difference between that and a dirt late model is like how many miles an hour? Like 20, 30, 40 miles an hour, right? These guys were ripping 120 around a 3/8 mile track. That's a lot of dirt to fall on homeboy. All right. Now, I don't mind. I was like, hey, I came here to get hit with dirt and chew gum, and I'm all out of gum. So, like, let's go. All right, I'm ready for it. But here's what happened. So I brought eye protection. I only have one thing, and I was like, hey, my friend Taylor, it's her. I went to Dixie with her and her family the week before, so I gave her the eye protection. I just have not these very ones, but sunglasses, just like these. Very hard to watch dirt racing with sunglasses on at night. And there was one race I thought I'd be Billy Bad Butt and leave them off for just the beginning of the race because I really wanted to see it. And I have a video up on my Facebook page and Instagram, a reel up, Fireball Turnbull on Instagram, Doug Turnbull on Facebook. And I'm watching the leaders that are coming around, and she's filming it, all right? She and her buddies are filming it. And a piece of dirt comes up, and I'm watching, and all of a sudden you see my head go, whap, like this. And one hit me right here in the eye. And I honestly thought it didn't even hurt that much. I mean, it hurt, but not like terribly. I thought I'm in serious trouble because I turned around, and I just kept pulling dirt out of my eye. It was like this big piece. I don't know where it went. That was tough. That was tough. I thought, well, I guess I'm blind. So please wear protection at a dirt track. And please protect yourself properly. That was a ton of fun, though. The sprint cars were unbelievable. And Devin, you'll love this. All right, I promise. Done with me here. We'll get to racing, the other racing. The leader of the dirt race and the sprint race, they had to have had an illegal car, and I actually don't know if it was illegal or not. I wasn't reporting; I was just there watching. And this car led every single lap, had a big old lead, and then on the last lap started blowing an engine. And the lead was so big that they blew the engine coming across start finish line, like Darrell Waltrip 1985 All-Star race, still won the race, which was really exciting because they had them covered otherwise, and they were running like a half a second to a second faster than everyone. So I wonder how post-race tech went. I didn't ask, but thanks to Mia Swims Green, and Mickey Swims, owners of the track, for hooking us up. So that being said, let's get to Indy. That was my racing experience this weekend. But Devin Kupka, who's now a college graduate, so he's Dr. Devin Kupka.
You could say I'm halfway there to doctor.
You're a half doc. There you go. You're like Mr. Pibb, not Dr. Pepper. There we go.
Like you've been RN.
Racing nerd, baby. So, but Devin, you were in Indy, and you were there last year for the reincarnation after a few years off the Brickyard 400. Just give me the overall postcard of your weekend at both tracks.
Well, you mentioned there about comparing it to last year. I feel like going into the week of the Brickyard just felt like the vibes were a little bit different. That there wasn't as much excitement for it this year as there was last year. And
sure.
I mean, around the city and stuff, they still had some of the similar stuff that they had last year, changing the road signs in downtown Indianapolis, like Busher Boulevard or Larson Street, that type of stuff. But Indy overall was another solid weekend, I would say. I think last year you just had the return of everything, kind of hype everything up. And it was a little bit, it wasn't as much this year as it was compared to last year. But I will say one thing, I think the weather played a factor and a big role into all of this because of how hot and humid it was. It felt like we were down at Echo Park Speedway in the middle of July on a weekday. So that's the type of weather it felt like, and I think that certainly played a role. But it was a good weekend overall. It was cool to see Bubba Wallace pick up his third NASCAR Cup Series win and the biggest win of his career to really solidify just how big of a race that is. Then Connor Zilisch just showing how talented he was on Saturday night. Then we saw Lane Riggs dominate the truck race, and the ARCA race was good as well. So it was a decent weekend overall for racing. And I think the highlight of the weekend's got to be that the Pennzoil 250 on Saturday.
Oh, you don't think the highlight was Bubba holding off 2 overtimes to get the historic?
No, Bubba Wallace did great. Those last 23 laps held off Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, and that's really hard to do. Those are 2 very experienced and talented veteran drivers, and that is very difficult to do. And I'm not, putting Bubba Wallace down or anything. That's really impressive to do, and that's hard to do. So a lot of props to him. But I'm just saying overall on the weekend, the
best race, you mean?
Probably the Pennzoil 250.
For sure. And the best race, and that was a race not dominated by Zilisch either. I had to kind of go play catch-up on that. It was one where Zilisch rooted his way through, got up to win. Is that his 3rd or his 4th win in a row?
That's his 3rd win in a row, 4th in the last 6.
Right, and I think his 6th of the season, I'm not mistaken, or 5th.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so Connor Zilisch and the guys, for instance, I listened to the Money Lap earlier today, Parker Kligerman, Landon Castle. He's won on almost every kind of track. Basically, he's missing a 1.5 mile, Charlotte, Las Vegas-esque track, and he's missing like a short track, because Dover's not a short track technically, right? So he's starting to check off the boxes, and of course we know he can do road courses. And compare that, and again, an amazing driver and a guy who's been on top of the world just a couple weeks ago, Shane Van Gisbergen's rookie season in Xfinity too. So yeah, Connor Zilisch is on top of the world, largely believed to be the replacement for Daniel Suarez in the 99. As far as Cup Silly season, not a whole lot of developments, I don't think, in Indy. We'll talk about a driver extension there in a moment. I wanted to get to you, Dan, just because you've watched, you were at the first Brickyard, I'm pretty sure anyway, in 1994. What did you think of how things turned out this weekend, especially in comparison to the hype last year?
I thought it was equally as well because you had such racing, and Devin will be able to elaborate on a lot of this because it looked like from viewing it on TV that there was a lot of racing through the field. There was a lot of excitement through the field. And at the beginning of the race, for sure, you had no idea who had the strongest car. And it was it was really good to see the fact that it was different leaders throughout the race and how the driver, how even Bubba fell back in the field and was able to keep in better positions through the race. And usually you don't see that. Usually it's at a racetrack like that, it's follow the leader.
Yeah, and I think one thing too, if you're talking about strong cars on Sunday, we had Chase Briscoe. He won the pole, Indiana driver. I think what we saw throughout that race on Sunday, I think Penske had the best cars overall, and we even saw Josh Berry running up front too on Sunday as well.
Yeah, I think he ran out of fuel at the end and that marooned his finish, but he did great.
And just unfortunate issues, I think, for all three Penske drivers, Blaney, Logano, and Cindric, all blowing tires at separate points in the race, and it just felt like the Penske cars were the cars to beat as the race developed. Not going into the race, but as the race was developing, because we saw Logano lead laps, we saw Cindric out front, we saw Blaney out front for a little bit too, so it was just unfortunate to see the Penske guys, their tires blow when it looked like they had the best cars, and they were using strategy to their advantage too. But having tires blow really just blew. As I texted y'all on Sunday, just blew up Roger Penske's plan.
Well, no doubt, and Penske, especially on the Logano 22 team, seemed to be really dialed in. Maybe more so than the other teams in strategy. And I listened to a couple of the post race. I'm closing my eyes to try to remember which one, but I think it was the Inside the Race podcast. Todd Gordon, Steve Letarte, now hosted by Alex Weaver, because Steve Letarte's in the booth for like every race this year, it seems like. Okay. But except for the Fox races, he is for every race with the Fox races. In fact, we're moving to NBC next week. We just finished the TNT run. We're not going to expound too much on that. That is what it is. Lee Diffie, the lead call next weekend. But they said on the the Inside the Race podcast, I think it was Todd Gordon, the former Penske crew chief, 2018 championship winner with Joey Logano, how Penske has a certain idea. They get good fuel mileage, and when they realize that the tires don't matter, their strategy is often stay out, grab the track position, we'll figure out the rest. And that's certainly how Austin Cindric, Joey Logano, and the like got up front from wherever they started in the race there, right? We'll go down the rundown in just a minute there. Of course, Cindric finished way back, as you mentioned, with the tire issue. Barry ran out of fuel. Some other things happened, but there's a clip from the radioactive, if you will, of Joey Logano when Paul Wolfe says, stay out. He goes, really? Or something like that. He definitely questions it. But Paul Wolfe tells Logano, guess what? At least in that moment, it worked out. Denny Hamlin and his Chris Gale-led team had to go all the way for the back. Why, Devin?
Well, because he wrecked in qualifying.
Yes, he did. And he wrecked in qualifying. And what he said on Actions Detrimental this week, and I think the data backed it up too, is he had Chase Briscoe, his Gibbs teammate, covered by 2/10. If he had just backed off a little bit in the last turns, which I think were actually turns 1 and 2 in qualifying, they have a different start-finish line in qualifying, which is weird to me why they would do that at Indy, but I guess it's a big track. That's why. I don't need to dig into that. But he had him covered, and if he had backed off just a little, he'd have been fine. But he was going all out, and he completely hung that mistake on himself. John Hunter Nemechek and maybe some others had some issues in qualifying too, which just goes to show, guys, they are running on the edge, even though they don't have all the horsepower, and the edge is hard to find in this car. And even drivers like Hamlin, who's the elder statesman in Cup now after Truex's retirement, can still lay an egg sometimes in a bad way. Speaking of Denny Hamlin, so by the way, let me before I get to Hamlin, we're going to talk about his contract extension in a moment. Okay, but his driver Bubba Wallace wins the race. He is now, like he perpetually has lived on the playoff bubble. It's his first ever, Dan Elliott, regular season win. It's only the third win ever, by my count anyway, for an open team. Remember, 23-11 in front row are open teams now, means way less money, no owners' points, playoff eligibility. Drivers could be in the playoffs. The owners essentially will not for all 6 of those teams, the 23-11 in front row motorsports. But Bubba Wallace has lived perpetually on the playoff bubble really since he joined 23-11 Racing. In 2021, Dan, he was never a points contender. 2022, I believe I don't remember. 2022, I think he got in. No, he didn't get in on points, but he won later in the year at Kansas. 2023, and he won later in the year at Talladega, 2021. 2023, he went winless, made the playoffs on points, but fell out quickly. Last year, he missed the playoffs, and then this year, he gets in, Dan. So Bubba Wallace not only gets in the playoffs, but he does so winning one of the crown jewel races. Does this do anything, Dan? I mean, he held off some of the best drivers, not just in NASCAR, but in the world on the final restarts. Dan, does this do anything to turn the opinion on him, which was starting to even the people that liked him go, okay, Bubba, put up or shut up?
I don't know if it's going to do that or not, because usually the people who have the opinions, it's either black or white, cut dry on what we're seeing. And I don't know that it's going to make a difference, because he did. He beat the best. And really out of this, I'm like Devin, I was surprised that he could hold off Kyle Larson in those final restarts and final laps to complete to get the victory. And I really was surprised, because it was not what I expected to see from Kyle Larson, for sure, because I thought Kyle would get to the back bumper and try to rattle the cage, because I figure at this point in time, we've seen it time and time again where Bubba has gotten rattled before at times. Yeah. And I feel like if he could have ever got there, that's probably what would have happened. And I thought that might be the strategy, but it didn't. But as far as Bubba's stock, this is going to do a lot to increase his stock. And I think more than that is what Bubba is going to take away from this. And that is, these wins only reinforce what you know is inside you, but you have yet to prove. And I think this is one of the majors right here, in the fact that he has really self-motivation, not self-worth, but just that being able to say that I completed this, I did this, I was able to put it together complete, and we're in victory lane. Yep. But now we're beginning to see the consequences of the not signing the charter, of the charters, and now the details are beginning to come out, and we're beginning to see now what some of the problems are not being a charter team, and this a lot of people didn't think about in the beginning, but now you're beginning to see, and it's out there for everyone to see.
Well, I think it was hanging over for the people in the know, or people like us that follow this more closely. You miss out on a lot of money just per race. One thing I was not aware of is that an open team, not just a person that's suing NASCAR, a team that's suing NASCAR, but an open team cannot actually be eligible for the owner's points. If B.J. McLeod were to have decided, I'm running the whole season as the 37th car on the grid, and let's say he won Talladega, made the playoffs or something, he wouldn't be eligible to win the owner's championship. B.J. McLeod, the driver, would, and I didn't know that, or I'd forgotten that if I did, until Bubba wins this race. By the way, who would have had it on their bingo card, and I mean no shade to the 23 team, that Bubba Wallace and crew chief Charles Denike would win before Tyler Reddick this year. Reddick was a championship Ford driver a year ago, but even more than that, he was the most consistent driver last summer, led a ton of laps, won several races. And Tyler Reddick is yet to win. That's big news there, too. And he is the top driver on points who hasn't won yet. And it is very feasible if they have another bad race like they did Sunday, where they only got 15 points and finished 29th. They crashed out, I think, on one of the late race melees, if I'm not mistaken. That it's very possible he could miss the playoffs. A lot of things would have to happen, though. Maybe a couple new winners and a couple really bad races. Now, Devin, I'm not going to ask you about all that. And by the way, Bubba Wallace, first African-American driver to win on the oval at Indy. That you got to say, I mean, granted, the oval has only been run by NASCAR and IndyCar that I know of, but that's a lot of Indy 500s. That's a lot of Brickyard 400s. Not very many black drivers, but still the first one to do that. Devin, you were there for the burnout. You had great video of that. You were there for the victory lane. You were there for the post-race presser. I don't know if you got any beer on you or not, but Dev, what was the celebration like, and who did you overhear talking, or what were some of the comments like, I guess?
I didn't get a chance to go to Victory Lane. I just passed by him on the way when he was on his way to Victory Lane. But to something that Dan made a point of a few minutes ago about the fact that Bubba Wallace has gotten rattled in some of these situations. He said this in the post-race press conference, that there's a lot of negative thoughts that'll go through his head at the end of races when he's in situations like this where he has an opportunity to go win a race, or is up front to win a race. He said that he was able to shut those thoughts off at the end of the race because he led the last 23 laps of the Brickyard 400 this weekend, and he's able to shut them off And he said, as maybe I have to start doing that more often. And he said, doing that really helped me be able to propel me to the win in the Brickyard 400 today. So I think that's one thing that Bubba Wallace has overcome is some of those negative thoughts. I think there's some other drivers that have dealt issues with that too. I believe AJ Allmendinger was another driver that struggled from that issue as well. But big props for Bubba Wallace to be able to overcome that and put him in a big situation to win a race like the Brickyard 400.
Devin, do you think that any of these drivers seek professional help to overcome some of these thoughts, some of these ideas that they have?
I think they do. I just don't think they'll publicly put that out there.
No, they do. And if you watched, and I know you didn't get to, Dev, because it's on Netflix, but the NASCAR Full Speed documentary, William Byron allowed cameras into his sports psychology session. All right? So he admitted it openly, championship 4 driver, regular contender, still only one race win this year. That's crazy to me, by the way. But he does. Denny Hamlin, after losing the 2010 championship, I know that was back when Devin was wasn't born yet in 2010 or whatever. One joking episode, I got to make fun of your age. Okay, I'm the one that's cooked, but you're the one that's young. But Denny Hamlin got crushed by that. But he could have won Jimmy Johnson's 5th championship in a row. Should have been Hamlin's. And the wheels fell off at the very end of the season, and he had to go get professional help in that. Other drivers have talked about mental health as well. Another of it, I'm not trying to make a cheesy transition, but you guys, Dan and Devin, both talking about mental health reminded me of something that we didn't even discuss before the show. A driver that has been very open about that, especially after losing the Geico ride, the number 13 car, several years ago in Cup, is Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon had a whole vlog, if you will, a whole video series talking about this. And, of course, as he has become a folk hero in mid-2025 over these last, 5-10 weeks, because Ty Dillon was all the way to the final 2 for the in-season championship. The other Ty, the other Silver Spoon grandson of Gibbs, who I went ahead and picked Ty Dillon for it. I rode Devin's momentum there saying how great he was at Brickyard, but Ty Gibbs was able to outfinish Ty Dillon, and Gibbs, by finishing 21st no less, was able to win the $1 million in-season tournament. And since he's a part owner of his number 54, I guess he gets a bigger share of the cash maybe than Ty Dillon would have. But the Cinderella story's over. Ty Gibbs wins. What was the celebration like, Devin, for the Gibbs thing? Because I know they had something staged for that.
I'll give you the celebration for the Gibbs thing. Let me go grab it real quick.
Okay. All right. Hey, Dan, what did you think about the in-season tournament now that's in the rear view while we wait for Devin?
I thought it was just so overshadowed. Yeah, there were moments that it got brought to the front burner, but I think that the racing kind of overshadowed some of that was the racing on the track, so to speak, and the events that took place on some of these races kind of overshadowed those events as well.
Tell us, Devin.
I got the money. $1 million bills right here.
Come on.
We're rich. See, actually, there's some pictures of real $100 bills coming out of the money guns.
And how do we know they're real? If there's
I don't know.
pictures?
They look pretty legit. And then there were these. He dropped these in the media center in the press room.
So Devin is picking up Ty Gibbs' fake money, which means basically they're best friends.
And Devin was there.
And Devin was there. That's big. So much like Dan holding on to the $1 million bills, that's right. There you go. We've now got $100 bills.
What's the difference in the
this
bills?
one's $1 million though.
Oh, it's $1 million. Oh, wow. So bring that up to the Hall of Fame.
What's the difference in the bills that they did when we won the $1 million at Darlington in '85 versus what you could get after the race? They misspelled the last name. There was only one T on the original bills that were in Victory Lane in the 1985 season.
Did they have Ty Gibbs' name on these $1 million bills, Devin?
No, these look pretty legit, except that they say copy on them. You can see the copy.
So, if anybody in the Indianapolis area is trying to cut $1 million at St. Elmo's, can't do it. Can't do it. All right. So that's really cool, though, to be able to pick up that. That's something you just don't go by. There we go. My man, make it rain. Let's go.
Hey, Devin, now you can buy 3 loaves of bread.
Yeah. Yep.
As 2 Chainz said,
that's where I'm
bag
going.
full of money, call it a bread truck. All right.
Inflation has struck.
Yep.
There you go. That's fantastic. Yeah. That would have been a lot more money in 1994. Okay. So
I will
Bubba
say
Wallace.
one thing about Ty Gibbs, though. I just actually it just got posted to the 5 to Go Facebook page and as a picture, but it was in the recap video. This is actually his lowest finish over the past 5 races, believe it or not. Finished 21st. The other ones were top 5, top 10 finishes, top 15. This was a sub top 20. So,
wow, that's great. So Ty
and the
Dillon.
thing about it too is that Ty Dillon had a really bad day, and he was a car 1 lap down, but there are a couple cars ahead of him where. Maybe if Ty Gibbs got caught up in that and went a lap down with just how that race pulled out, maybe Ty Dillon would have been able to have something. But like a lot of other drivers, Ty Dillon's front nose was smashed in at some point during this race.
Yeah, I probably on one of those late restarts, and I didn't get to see it. It's just full disclosure. I listened to some, then I had to go to church, and he ended up 28th. Did Ty Dillon 3 laps down? Ty Gibbs again was 21st. Yeah, check out the graphic. Kind of interesting how the thing that won it head-to-head was a 21st place finish with Ty Gibbs there in the 54 car. Here are your top 10 finishers. Bubba Wallace led 30 laps on the day, 3rd career win, and certainly the biggest one of his career, his first ever win in the regular season. Kyle Larson emerges from a summer slumber to lead 19 laps and finish 2nd. Denny Hamlin finishes 3rd. Let's pause there real quick. Devin, Friday, last week, you had big news. You put it on the 5 to Go Facebook page. You put it on your X account at Devin_Kupka. We kind of have a timeline on Denny Hamlin's Cup Series career.
Yeah, we do. He signed a 2-year contract extension with Joe Gibbs Racing, and in the press conference on Friday, it was brought up saying, well, why'd you only sign a 2-year contract, not a 3-year contract? And he said, well, 2 years is really, that's as far out as I want to go right now, and it's based off of performance. If I start sliding off, I'm going to retire. And those are the words that he said. 3's a big number, but 2 is the most that I could do. And if he starts sliding off, it's all performance based. That's what he told us. Was that this was his final contract extension that he's going to be signing with Joe Gibbs Racing, and that it's all performance based, and that's why he didn't sign a longer deal contract with them. And it seems like he's in control of the contract in a way on whether or not he was going to leave Joe Gibbs Racing, not Joe Gibbs saying, all right, you've only got 2 more years left.
Well, it may seem like we don't know. I mean, it may be that the organization, especially with the salary he probably commands, didn't want to commit much past that, considering the sponsorship situation got really awry in the last couple of years, especially after FedEx left after the 2024 season. And you don't want to sign – same in other sports. It's just the NASCAR ceiling as far as age is higher. You don't want to sign – a 5-year extension with someone and they're 45 years old. Denny will be on November 18th, 45 years old. So we'll have Denny Hamlin in his age 45 and 46 seasons. All right, because really next year is his age 45 season. And he said on Actions Detrimental this week, but when he just missed winning Indy, and he has not won the Brickyard 400, if I'm not mistaken. He has not won that race. He said, hey, I know I only probably have 2 more times going back here. All right. He also said, and we're not going to get into the whole playoff thing. There's been a big discussion about the playoffs, and we're hearing now likely no changes to the playoff format in 2026 just because of this whole playoff committee disagreement there. A lot of people heard about the brouhaha with things Larry McReynolds and Danielle Trotta said. It's been over legislated. We don't need to get into it. But he did say if it was a season-long format, he would be more likely to stay with it because he feels like he can still perform at a level where you're consistent over time and top out, as opposed to having these Game 7 moments over and over again in the playoffs. So Denny Hamlin there, 2-year extension. Corey Hine, the development driver at 2311. And I thought when they signed him that we might be seeing Denny Hamlin's last year this year or next year. So he's got 1 more after that. And I wonder if Hine is a candidate to replace him or if his bridge is burned enough at Joe Gibbs Racing. Hine has clashed with Ty Gibbs in the past and some other Gibbs drivers. Chandler Smith a year ago at Echo Park Speedway. All right, so Hamlin was 3rd. And remember, he was the winner at Dover a week before that. He is on a tear. A guy that is still outside the playoff bubble. In fact, because Bubba Wallace won, this driver lost points to the playoff bubble despite being 4th in the Brickyard 400, and that would be number 60, Ryan Preece. His team owner, Brad Keselowski, who I picked to do well Sunday in my fantasy league, he finished 5th. Todd Gilliland, 2nd year in a row with a top 10 in the Brickyard 400. I had him on the bench in NASCAR Fantasy this week. I wish I'd put him in the big shot. He was 6th. Another Ford of Ryan Blaney was 7th. Christopher Bell, who had another weekend of what are you doing? Because he accidentally wrecked, or we presume accidentally wrecked Zane Smith on a late race restart. He ended up finishing 8th, though, and remember, he spun 2 or 3 times at Dover and crashed. 9th went to Alex Bowman. Another solid points day for him on the playoff bubble. He's on the right side of things. And Carson Hocevar, I don't think I heard one controversial thing about Mr. Hocevar this weekend. He finished 10th. Now, I want to mention the 11th and 12th place finishers. For one, Justin Haley in 11th. Now, you were there in Indy, Devin. I'm not trying to ignore you, Dan. Just Devin was on scene. There have been rumors, just me hearing what commentators and people in the garage say on these podcasts, that Justin Haley low-key could be a driver on the hot seat, much like the driver in the number 7 Corey LaJoie a year ago was, because the performance just hasn't been there. They fired Rodney Childers, or let go, mutually, whatever. It happened back in April. I think he was let go. Rodney Childers from the 7 car. Nothing's really changed with Ryan Sparks at the controls, but Haley did get an 11th place finish. There have been some talks about things over there. Did you hear anything like that, Devin?
I haven't heard anything, but I'm going to say this about Justin Haley, though. He's one of those drivers that I've heard is, and I'm going to be careful with this, that races in the Cup Series, but isn't, how would I put it, is not, he's there to have a lot of fun, basically.
Okay.
Not saying he's not trying to not compete, but he's just grateful that he's there.
Okay.
Ty Dillon is another one of those drivers, for instance.
Ty Dillon.
Just happy to be there and is able to race at that level. And it's kind of more of a
he's not trying to level up and get better. I mean, he's trying, but he's maybe not doing the same effort as other drivers competitively to do that. Denny Hamlin said not the exact same thing, but even something similar about Bubba Wallace, which is basically, at least mentally, he's got to want it enough to win. And he said that after Bubba's win on Sunday. A lot easier to say that after the driver won and they've shown they won it, right? But Hamlin was pretty candid about Bubba Wallace, too. And I think we forget that mental element that Dan brought up a few minutes ago. That matters, too. That mental element may be only worth half a tenth, but when every car is the same, a half a tenth ain't too bad, right?
It's a lot.
Although you can't pass even if you're like a second faster. Sometimes it seems like. Just Haley's 11th. Another nod to John Hunter Nemechek. Legacy Motor Club has found something. Eric Jones was really fast before he had the wheel issue. The wheel got loose. Brake rotor cut it. It's what I heard happened. But John Hunter Nemechek finished 12th. I hope they pass all inspections there, that they're so fast now. But we've seen Legacy Motor Club every other year or at different points once a year. They just suddenly get fast. That doesn't happen by accident. Chase Elliott finished 13th. Chris Buescher was 14th, and I'm going down to there because he's still on the playoff bubble with no wins this year. And then back in the field, we mentioned where the in-season tournament drivers named Ty finished. But one more finish, Dan, we need to get to, and that is the 17th place British driver for BJ McLeod Motorsports in this race, and the historicity, if you will, of Catherine Legg. How about her finishing 17th, Dan?
That was a great finish, and it just goes to show that in this race, because I'm not going to take away any of this, because the fact that Bubba won, and that was a great race for him, but the fact that I don't know mentally, physically, what it is about this race that makes it so tough for some of the drivers, but she was able to improve positions from the last races to finish better, where a lot of the drivers finished worse that I thought would have good runs there. And I think this is beginning to show her professionalism and her abilities. I think this is beginning to shine through on how good a driver I think she really is.
That's a great point. And Devin, was the vibe the same immediately post-race, or did people kind of have to come up for air to realize that she'd gotten her best career finish? And it finished ahead of, legitimately, not just by some weird strategy, but legitimately ahead of the pole sitter, Chase Briscoe, in 18th. I mean, did you realize it at first, or did it take you debriefing and decompressing in your hotel room to realize?
It was more of a debriefing, I think, because of how significant the Bubba Wallace win was, is that took really precedent over that, to where... seeing the Catherine Legg thing, I didn't realize that till much later on. So really, it was more of the Bubba Wallace than it was Catherine Legg, I would say.
For sure. And We need to, before we pull away from the weekend here, need to acknowledge that that's an impressive finish there, and I'm hoping that the good momentum could stay with her. A lot of times, and this point was made, I listened to countless number of things, social media posts, and I'm about to say something positive and constructive. She's driving for a team with no resources, right? They're not an affiliated team. There's no practice. I mean, there's 15 or 20 minutes of practice or something, and you're supposed to go out there in a car that's nothing like you've driven before and perform. And it's the same with Shane Van Gisbergen, except he's gotten a full Xfinity season before. And she does it part-time. And no wonder she goes out there and runs 39th, a second off the pace in practice and qualifying. And while it did take some strategy to help her leapfrog some people, that was true with everybody. It was freaking hard to pass. There's no way around it. That is how Indy is. You have to have something else going on. And she was able, she could, she would, if she was a non-driving SOB, as some people like to call people that don't finish well, she wouldn't have finished 17th like that.
No,
so
and this is in a place that even the best get intimidated at this place.
Correct. And even the best, and now we're going to switch to the Xfinity Series where Connor Zillage is on fire. He's won like 16,000 races this year or something. All right, he's on fire, but we need to jump just a little further back in that field. A driver that, in my opinion, should be a championship contender and is, but should be the bee's knees, right? He should be above and beyond considering how much he wins, especially in super speedways, racks up playoff points, and then it's like, you did what? And that is Austin Hill. And I'm an Austin Hill. He's a Georgia driver. I'm not disliking him. But Austin Hill, much like in Martinsville, where he ended up wrecking his own teammate, Jesse Love, and then got up after the race and said he was going to be the one to help show these drivers how to not have a sloppy race. NASCAR ruled, regardless of what our opinions are, NASCAR ruled that he intentionally right hooked, if you will, Eric Almirola after Almirola got loose and got into Hill and brushed him up in the wall, got him out of the groove during the Saturday Xfinity race. They parked him for 5 laps. He's yelling F NASCAR, and I didn't do that on purpose on his radio. I'm paraphrasing, but he did say F NASCAR. And after the fact, they gave the top suspension they said they would give to an intentional crash. 1 race suspension, all playoff points taken away. And he can't get any more playoff points until he gets in the playoffs. All right, this is big because he had, I don't have the number in front of me, but he had a significant amount of playoff points from those several wins, some stage wins and whatnot. Dan, I'm coming to you with driver conduct stuff because you've had to legislate this stuff, being the GM of a racetrack at Gresham Motorsports Park. Did they give too harsh of a penalty to Austin Hill? What do you think the deal is? Because he seems to have had a few too many of these screw-ups now, and certainly is not given the benefit of the doubt when it comes to something subjective like did he do it on purpose or not.
You know, as much as I like Austin Hill, I would say that NASCAR probably was pretty much on point on what they had to do. I can't see this going any other way on the circumstances. If all that be true, if all the circumstances were laid out, how you could rule otherwise. But to me, this is just a hard hit for Austin Hill, but an equally as hard hit for RCR.
Yes. All right. And that's the other thing is Richard Childress, just from the things I've read, he was on, I want to say, with Kenny Wallace this week, if I'm not mistaken, but I didn't get to listen to it. But Richard Childress had been very public in saying NASCAR's out to get us. We're the blue-collar team. On and on and on, and you could certainly make a case. You could line up the Austin Dillon deal of Richmond and other penalties and say, look, he's got a point. Richard Childress did say, I don't know why Austin Cindric didn't get the same penalty. He wrecked my grandson at COTA. NASCAR's response being, it's not a high-speed straightaway. We took away some points. We nailed him, but there's a less danger in wrecking someone at COTA in the stadium or wherever that was than there is on the big turn. So, I mean, Dan, before I get to you, Devin, I want to hear what you have to say. You were there for it. Dan, do you think that there's what do you say to they're picking on Richard Childress Racing?
You know, it is one of those things, I think, to where that you're struggling as a team already. You're struggling. You've got so many things seemingly come against you that the battle becomes, you take it personal, even though it's not. You start to take it personal, and I feel like this has been brewing for the better part of the year, mid-season on for sure. But I feel like that that Childress will get it pulled together, but maybe and I probably need to take the same advice. Maybe they need a little professional help here too on the direction of the whole organization and as a whole, what can we do to turn this around and learn from this and move on? Because the worst thing about this is the things that I heard while we were going through all of this in our prime, in our day, was that NASCAR, it's the only game in town. If you want to play, you play. And,
Yeah.
and the thing about it is, yes, it looks like it's getting personal, but on the outside looking in, some of this stuff is getting out of hand. It's kind of like the 2311 in NASCAR. It's almost like at times the gloves seem to be coming off. I know they're not, but it seems that way that the fight is getting personal. And that's something that you really got to keep out of it.
Well, no doubt. We don't want it to seem that way. But you also, Devin, before I get to you, Devin, I want to say, you make a great point, Dan. And it's not just been Austin Hill. There was Austin Hill, though, lately has been a big center of that. And going back to him versus Sheldon Creed a couple of years ago in Martinsville, his own teammate. Austin Hill's a good driver, but there's something going on there that they're not wrangling these drivers enough. I mean, Kyle Busch, for as much of a hothead as he's been over the years, isn't trying to wreck Austin Dillon in the Cup Series, right? That we've seen anyway. Not that I've seen. But Austin Dillon had that moment of impropriety, if you will, at the end of the Richmond race almost a year ago. The Austin Hill stuff here, I'm trying to think of some other examples, and it just seems like there was, in the middle of the year, remember last year, they had that organizational shakeup, and then the guys got really fast, and Austin Hill won Richmond, remember, after the summer break? I wonder if there's still something missing as far as driver development, if you will. I don't know. That's a maybe, because you bring up a good point, Dan. What organizationally has to change? All right, Devin, you were there. And we know Austin Hill didn't comment, right? Did you try to chase that down? I know somebody did.
There were people trying to chase him down. I got some pictures of Austin Hill walking away from his car. I didn't get a comment from him or anything like that.
And what was the reaction? Were you in the media center, the press box, or pit road when it happened? And what was the reaction of the people around you as it unfolded?
I was only in the media center when it happened. I don't know what the reaction of people was, because you know how there was less media there than there was last year.
Sure.
And it's really spread out on how big that media center is, so it was really kind of hard. I pretty much had the whole row to myself.
Okay.
There really wasn't anybody nearby, but here were my initial thoughts. And it looks like NASCAR has concluded that from the data that they saw from Austin Hill's car that he intentionally wrecked Eric Almirola. I had two train of thoughts when it first happened. One, we saw Eric Almirola get a little bit into Austin Hill there and got Austin Hill really loose, and Hill was able to save it.
Yeah.
My first train of thought was, all right, Austin Hill was able to save it just enough for it to be straight for just a second, and then lost it the rest of the way, and then ended up collecting Eric Almirola. And the other thought I had was the intentional wrecking, because I felt like at the time, looking at the replays, that it was just enough time that he had saved it to lose it again, and then to just accidentally collect him. But it looks like from the data that NASCAR has collected that it was an intentional wreck. And the reason I thought that was because of what Austin Hill was saying over the radio. But
okay, you mean you thought it was not intentional because Austin Hill was so adamant that it was not, correct?
Yeah, in a way, and also just kind of looking at how the replay is, because we've seen drivers before save their race car and then only end up losing it maybe a half second later.
Yeah,
so they get it straight, and then it's not straight again.
Right. So I want to say, I was at Dixie Speedway when that happened, and I get on social media and I start saying, "Oh no, Austin Hill!" before I've even seen the video. So that went against my ability to look at it objectively. But my first thought when I saw the video was, I mean, it looked like he bounced off the wall. My first thought. And then I started, seeing other replays and seeing the whole white gloves comment, because when you see the wheel do this, Denny Hamlin made an interesting observation. All right. And before I say that, NASCAR does not have the same SMT or satellite positioning data in the Xfinity cars that it has in the Cup cars. You cannot see steering angles from their data. It's more rudimentary than the Cup cars. But Denny Hamlin said he's not willing to give Austin Hill the benefit of the doubt because of his history, but he is just wondering if there's a slight percentage chance that when Austin Hill gathered the car that he took his hands off the wheel and it wasn't at a 10 and a 2. The wheel wasn't at the right angle when he started gathering it, and that's what caused him at that high speed. And again, it's easy for us. We've taken 7 minutes or something looking back at this for something that happened in 0.7 seconds, right? Did Austin Hill have a moment where he made a driver error and grabbed the wheel in the wrong place, and then it looked like he did it on purpose? But because it's Austin Hill and not Justin Allgaier, who doesn't have a reputation for that I know of, Austin Hill's going to get the boot. Here's one thing NASCAR said before I get to you, Devin. Sorry. NASCAR said on the Inside the Hauler podcast this week, and I made sure and listen because I wanted to hear how they determined, especially without that extra data, and they explained the data part, is that they have former drivers who are in race control with them. All right. Elton Sawyer is one of them. And what Amanda Jones Ellis, NASCAR PR, Devin knows her, all right, what she said is the former driver's immediate reaction was that was intentional. That's why they parked him for 5 laps. The suspension was based upon replay after replay after data after replay. Okay? Now, I hope I didn't spend too long explaining that. Devin, you have one more thing.
No, and I think one thing that doesn't help Austin Hill's case is how he reacted to him getting parked for 5 laps. Because if he handled that a little bit different, say, I'm so sorry, Eric Almirola, I just got loose there. Maybe things would have been a little bit different. But it seems like the attitude over there at Richard Childress Racing is a little bit of a us against the world mentality. Yeah,
and I mean, and that's charming when you're winning races and not right-hooking people.
Yeah, it's not. This isn't Denny Hamlin doing this. This is Richard Childress Racing.
Yeah, and look, we saw the golden boy of NASCAR, and I don't say that with my tongue in my cheek, Chase Elliott, for something that, although was egregious, it looked similar to the Austin Hill thing at Charlotte. We saw Chase Elliott get a 1-race suspension. They didn't have the playoff point rule then 2 years ago. So NASCAR has not just done this to RCR, all right? And now in the Truck Series, they explained, by the way, one thing that Amanda Jones Ellis and Mike Ford did explain on their podcast this week is in the Truck Series, they normally park drivers because they're younger and less experienced for 2 laps and not 5 laps for the same thing. Connor Jones, 66 truck, Homestead last year against, I believe, Matt Mills, 2 laps instead of 5. Austin Hill has been a full-time driver in a NASCAR National Series for nearly a decade. He gets the 5 laps, but then after the race gets the suspension. All right, so that's the deal with Austin Hill. Did you all? I need to go look and see who the replacement driver is. Did anybody catch that? I'm going to go look right now and see if I could figure that out.
No, I didn't see it.
Okay, I didn't see it announced. I would hope that Childress would just put put Kyle Busch in there, man. Put Kyle Busch in there. Don't go get a paid driver or something like that. Put Kyle Busch in. All right. Let me look at the entry list just really quick and see if they've actually put a replacement yet. They have not on the J-Ski entry list anyway. Oh, no, they have Austin Dillon. So there you go.
That's right.
They have to change only the last name on the door panel, right? It's just Dillon. Okay, so there we go. At least we got one Dillon, got some good news. Now, another replacement driver coming into Xfinity this weekend. We're going to get to the NASCAR schedule in a moment, but some Xfinity silly season first. And we've got a big IndyCar story as well. And we need to have some well wishes to pass on. I'm going to tell you right now, we're not doing an Iowa preview, all right? So we got too much going on. Enjoy Iowa. We'll talk about it next week. All right, but another driver replacement, Carson Hocevar will drive for Colleague Racing in the number 11 Xfinity Series ride this year. Josh Williams has been dismissed from that team. They have parted ways. Any statement I saw from Josh Williams was just, wow, this is too bad, and thanks to my partners and fans, basically. The race team decided they needed to part ways. Williams, and I'll look up the points in a minute, had grossly underperformed in his 2 years there. But also, he had some breathing issues. Remember, earlier this year, we saw Ty Dillon drive that car. So Williams had just a really tough season there. And Devin, you and I both were at the Atlanta race where Josh Williams parked it on the front stretch driving the DGM car. And that folk hero status really emerged for the Florida driver. He gets into Kaulig these next 2 years. And while he's been present on the track at great equipment, he honestly, Devin, do you think he even ran much better than he did in the 92 car? What did you think about his stay at Kaulig and the decision? This is so rare to have it happen mid-season, too.
I think that stunt that he did at Echo Park Speedway a few years ago helped him a lot more than it helped really anybody else. So,
yeah.
But I think that one of my first reactions to when hearing this news was that they're getting ready to potentially maybe put a Daniel Suarez in that ride for next year.
Oh.
I know it can't be this year because Suarez is still full-time in the Cup Series, but I think they might be getting ahead of that move. I'm not too sure why they're parting ways. Maybe money dried up or health issues are on the rise again for Josh Williams, but yeah. It's odd to see it nowadays, to see a driver be fired mid-season.
No doubt. And I was erroneous. I thought he had actually missed a race with those breathing issues. He had been substituted during a race and also had missed some practice sessions early in the year, by the way. So that's an interesting insight. Could they be clearing the deck for another driver to come? They're going to have an all-star or rotating lineup of drivers. I'm sure Chevrolet has some drivers they want to plug in. I'm sure there's others with sponsors. Maybe their sponsors just outweighed his, and they looked at the performance and decided, let's just go for the money instead of the performance. I don't know. Josh Williams, 19th in Xfinity points, just 2 top 10s this year, average finish of 20th. Daniel Dye, his rookie teammate, has 7 top 10s, average finish of 17.6. Fellow rookie Christian Eckes, who's had a struggle of a year, 8 top 10s, and an average finish of 18.2. All of those drivers have struggled, but he has seen immediately the 2 rookies run better than him. You also see Brennan Poole ahead of Josh Williams in points. Ryan Sieg, Harrison Burton for smaller teams ahead of Josh Williams in the standings. And really, that's a tough go. To give you another look at it, Eric Almirola has run 9 races, so 12 less races this year than Josh Williams, and is only 3 spots behind him in the points. So only 30 points behind him in the standings, basically. So that's tough. Dan, I don't know how much you follow Josh Williams or not, or what you think about a decision like this, but it almost makes me wonder, Dan, I don't know if it's the same for you, was there more to it than performance?
You know, that's the thing I was sitting here thinking about during the whole time when talking about this, and it probably was, but it eventually comes down to what we were always told at the racetrack is nothing changes if you leave everything the same, and if you don't change up something, you're never going to know, and this is for the owner probably a tough decision to do, but it's one that it looks to me like needed to be done just for peace of mind of where are we struggling at? Is it the team? Is it the driver? What's going on? And this will help solve some of that quickly. Might not be the answer you want, but it's going to solve some of the question.
Oh, no doubt. And Josh Williams has a bank of sponsors with him. He and his team have done a great job. I say his management team have done a great job of cultivating that. He has been a Q&A guest, Raceway Ministry stage, Atlanta Motor Speedway, so down to earth. I mean, just a really cool guy. I'm sure he lands on his feet, but this was his big shot at the Apple. And I remember him saying on the stage a couple years ago at Atlanta, hey, man, we all know how to drive. We don't all have the equipment. You plug any of us in a top-tier ride, and we're going to go fast. He did go faster, but he didn't go as fast as the other Kaulig cars, and he didn't go as fast as the other, what we consider the top crust teams in Xfinity. So Josh Williams, I'm sure he lands one of these smaller teams that's plugging in drivers. I wish Our Motorsports had Josh Williams available for him instead of Chris Wright running him out of business, okay? That would have been a good fit, right? No pun intended saying right. I say right too much. Okay, so that's Josh Williams. That's Xfinity. Now to the NASCAR schedule. And thank you, boys, for your insight there. We learned last week. We recorded 5 to go really early last week. We have it really late this week. That's why there's so much news. NASCAR, indeed, rumor confirmed. Jordan Bianchi, the first reported. Kelly Crandall had it too. And then NASCAR confirms San Diego Coronado Navy Base. They're going to run a street race through there. It's going to be about a 3-mile course. The exact layout not determined. The exact date not determined. But NASCAR Dan Elliott returns to Southern California. See, I took this one away from Devin because he's so pro street race. He wants 7 more street races on the schedule. So I'm coming to you first, Dan. No, I'm just picking on you, Devin. You know I love you. What do you think about the decision, A, to do it in this manner, and B, returning to Southern Cal? Is that important?
Southern Cal, that's a great market there. I think that they will have definitely a presence there, needs to be. But the more important question is any sponsorship been announced for this race yet? Will this be a military sponsorship? Will it be the Navy?
BuildSubmarines.com.
There you go.
It was something with, I think it's called the Navy 250 because of the country's 250th year anniversary next year.
Yep.
And also the Brickyard next year. They're doing a red, white, and blue logo for next year's Brickyard 400.
Okay. I'm trying to see what the name of the race is. Are you sure it's the NASCAR San Diego weekend or the NASCAR Naval Base Coronado race? I don't know that there was a sponsor.
There's not a sponsor. It's going to just be a name in honor of the 250th anniversary of the country next year, United States.
Okay. Well, and that's big. So is that 250th anniversary of the Navy? My brother's in the Navy. I was asking him. But and of the U.S. That's right. The Army, I think, is what turned 250 this year because the Army, I think, has existed longer than the founding of the U.S. if I'm not mistaken. But that's a pretty cool overlap there. Devin, I know you're pro street course. I know we weren't totally surprised because the news had come out, but now it's official. And with that, no Chicago street race at least next year, and it looks very likely that Mexico will not be on the schedule next year. They have the World Cup in Mexico and in Atlanta, by the way, next summer. So what do you think about how this is unfolding? As it looks like the 2026 schedule is really gelling up now.
I will say one thing about this San Diego race that they're going to do. Since it's on a naval base, it's going to be on a big plat of concrete.
Yeah,
which is what it will be. My thing is IndyCar ran a race on a naval base or an Air Force base or something like that.
At an airport in Cleveland, yeah.
Yep. I just hope NASCAR next year can make it look like they're not necessarily... Okay, let me put it this way. The IndyCar race that they raced in Cleveland just kind of looked like there wasn't a whole lot there. It was just run on this big airstrip. Grandstands were plopped up and just a lot of empty space. I'm hoping NASCAR maybe takes a page out of F1 Miami or something. Where they're able to fill in a lot of areas of where there would be empty space. We don't have the track design yet, but I like to see a lot of what F1 does with Miami, fill in a lot of empty space because unfortunately, when you're racing on these types of areas, it's just a big plot of land with just an open, wide concrete area. It kind of looks a little boring.
Hopefully the racing won't be there. Let's see what I know that they're going to try to do this right. Well, I don't know. I feel they are going to try to do it right. By the looks of it, it didn't look like just a big piece of concrete. It's all through the base. Now, one concern, and it's a concern I had, well, wait, it's on a naval base. How does the public get in? I know they have public events. It will be a public day, so it's open to everyone. We're not just racing for the armed forces. Although, you know what? If we were, I'm fine with it. Thank you all for your service, including my brother, okay, who's stationed away from his wife right now and his son-to-be, okay? So, there's just, yeah. The other thing is this is not the first time that there's been racing held there. 2005, the Mazda MX-5 Cup, was not held at Naval Base San Diego. Sorry, I'm looking on this. There it is. Naval Base Coronado, near San Diego, hosted races in the MX-5 Cup Series in 2012 and 13 as part of a Coronado Speed Festival. So there has been racing there. There has been motorsports interest there. This is an AI overview on Google. I'm trying to pick through it. That's why I said it wrong. So just less than 15 years ago, the Mazda MX-5 Cup Series, where they race basically like spec Miatas, right, has raced in that region. I think there's going to be a lot of interest for it, and it's going to be very scenic, at least behind it as well, with the Bay and San Diego in the backdrop. So that's big. That's big. And NASCAR has been working on this for over a year, they said. They've had infrastructure. They even had a project name for it. I don't remember the name, so they could talk about it in code around NASCAR headquarters without spilling the beans. And they kept it under wraps until almost the very end. So honestly, props to NASCAR for just keeping it a secret. Yeah, Dan?
Do you think that we'll see Trump be leading the procession again with the presidential limo? Maybe he'll make a lap or two in the presidential limo, and because next year's supposed to be a big celebration year, and
Sure.
and
Sure.
I expect to see a lot of presents, not only there but Memorial Day Charlotte again.
I think
If
I think it's
will.
very likely. Although it being in California, if we're thinking this is ahead of the midterms, and I want this is not a political podcast. It's a midterm year, right? And I think midterm elections are going to be tough because approval ratings of the White House are a little bit down lately. Well, who knows what it'll be in a year? So I wonder if California is the best place for him to show up. Right, because politicians usually make it based on the states, but certainly that would be a national statement.
I think they're looking.
And we'll do a giant parade. We're gonna have a giant parade. It's gonna be great.
I think it's more honoring the military, and I don't know that you'll see it from that perspective, maybe. But I think it'll just be a celebration for the military, and it'll be. You and I both know that the weather out there seems to be always fabulous. So that's another thing to take out of that.
No doubt. That's I mean, you just jinxed it, Dan.
No,
now it's going to be like 6 inches of rain or something. Mark it down. Episode 300, whatever.
The whole total year fall of rain in Southern California is going to descend.
No tsunami. Okay, let's just keep it. It's going to be a great weekend, and weather will be amazing as it's always been. So,
we're going to have a giant machine racing against a tsunami.
Hey, I'm in. Like, let's get those windshield wipers going. By the way, we've got tariffs against tsunamis. There'll be very few tsunamis. All right, enough of that. Now, we just lost all of our followers right then. Okay, NASCAR, San Diego, unlikely to be Chicago Street Course, unlikely to be Mexico. Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic, reporting, and it's very likely they're going to actually bring back Chicagoland. Chicagoland, just like California Speedway or Auto Club Speedway in Southern California, Chicagoland, once it's shut down, oh man, we love this place. What happened? I'm like, God, you didn't like it most of the time. And the last couple of years of Chicagoland, with the pavement worn out, suddenly it was putting on good races, and we started to get that momentum. Same with Auto Club Speedway in California. But it looks like Chicagoland could be on the schedule, but that's not finalized.
I want to see all those fans that wanted Chicagoland back on the schedule. I want to see their butts in the Chicagoland seats next year.
It would be good to see. There was a popular influencer. I forget I don't know their name off the top of my head. I'm having brain fade. But they and I don't agree with their assessment, but they were talking about basically how the measurement of popularity and profitability of NASCAR is so antiquated if you're looking at butts in the seats, because it's all about fans want to stay home and watch it, and there's all of this engagement online and yada, yada, yada. And at first I was like, yeah. And then I was like, well, wait a second. How much of all of that turns into money? All right. This needs to have money. TV turns into money, but we see less and less people watching races still. Like overall, like people aren't sitting there trying to watch a 3.5-hour race. So engagement online is great when it keeps you up in the cultural zeitgeist. But how much of that is turning into money and added sponsors on the cars? So I do want to see them in the stands at Chicago. I want to see people paying attention and caring about it, however. And you got to measure it in all ways. All right. We talked about Josh Williams. I wanted to spend longer on this. We're already at an hour and 8 minutes. So Fox has bought, according to reports today, a 30% share in Penske Entertainment, which is the owner of IndyCar. As many listening know, Fox got the broadcasting contract this year. They put many of the races on Big Fox. And I think as a response partially to being less treated well, that's not the best word, by NASCAR. They've cut back some of their NASCAR offerings. And here they are going all in IndyCar. Now they're basically owning a third of IndyCar or so. I want to come to you first, Dan, because we don't love bedfellows like this. But what do you think about this move? What was your first thought when you saw the headline, maybe?
My first thought was Penske maybe, I'm not going to say imitate. Imitate's not the right word. But I'm sure he studied NASCAR, their production facility and where they're at, and being able to control the content of everything they own for the most part. And I see this as the only way probably that Roger could do this quickly is, and I say this, that the future of these sports and how important media and production and all of this is going to be. And I still say when the smoke clears that they will make more money off of the production than they do the racing part, the racing aspect of this, that the production part of this will be worth more than the racing part of this. It's just the fact that you have to own the racing part of this to be able to follow through with the ownership of the production part of this.
Interesting. So when you say the production, you mean they're going to make more money off of the TV than they would the gate at the racetrack? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. And the other things that they can do together jointly in that realm of IndyCar.
Okay. That's interesting. And I would think a lot easier to buy 30% of that Penske Entertainment brand. Now, this is not all a Penske enterprise. This is the Penske Entertainment that owns all Indy properties, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the IndyCar Series, and so forth. So it would be easier to buy in on that than trying to buy a third of NASCAR, for instance, just because of size of the sport. Do you think any of this will go
into programming as far as what we've already seen, some of the programming that we've seen on some of the major networks? Because the Indy deal, could this be a way to spin off other programming that is directly related to Indy and the drivers and the teams and so forth? Is this a way to bring this full circle?
Jump in, Devin.
Dirt track there. They've been doing like a dirt track every year, but now they're actually installing like not permanent stands, but they're investing more money into it now. So they have a dirt track in the infield.
What do you think about the move overall, Devin? Because you were the one that brought it up to us pre-race.
Oh, yeah. I think the move's kind of interesting that that a television partner is actually getting involved with the track. One of my first
with the whole series.
Oh, the IndyCar series?
Yeah, I mean, Penske Entertainment owns the whole series.
Yeah,
so that's.
I think it's a good thing for them because you have to be willing to invest into your racing series that way, not only just through a TV contract. I'm curious to see how that's going to play out, though, with the TV contract, which I think they extended. I guess Fox is happy with whatever the product IndyCar's putting out. But for them to buy it, I think is pretty big. I've been thinking more about the situation with Indianapolis Motor Speedway and how that affects things. Because I say this. I think with Fox buying that, they're going to be able to skirt the TV contract, and they're going to move the Brickyard 400 up into the spring sometime.
They're going to take it off
a third of it now. This something would have never happened prior.
But I think you think that they're going to take it off of Memorial Day weekend just because of F1 in Canada, or
no? Why would they move it? Brickyard 400 race. The NASCAR
Brickyard. I'm
race
sorry, I misheard you. Oh, okay.
Sure. Now they own the track.
Move it wherever you want.
Own the date. But that can add another race to their portfolio. I know that's going to take away from TNT or whoever would have it during this stretch. But
that's interesting. Yeah. Well, you got to wonder.
That's what I think about
NBC or TNT or whoever. Yeah. You got to wonder how locked in the race dates are, depending on the networks. As NASCAR has 4 networks spread across the season instead of just 2 or 3.
Network owns the track.
Right. That's a great point.
Ask yourself who owns controlling interest of that deal.
Controlling interest is still Penske Entertainment.
There you go.
It's 30% Fox. Yeah,
but
I would love to know.
Stands in the spring than you can in the summer, and the move would have never have happened in the past.
Well, okay, but let's look at that. That's a great point. Let's look at one other thing too. That Fox took a bunch of the Indy races because they're not. They knew Indy is not a vehicle to grow FS1 like NASCAR was. So they put, I think, is it every or almost every IndyCar race on Big Fox. They put Indy Next, that I've never watched on TV before. The Indy Next series is on FS1. All right? You can watch on national TV a series where I've heard of like 2 of the drivers. All right? That's big. So I'm wondering now if Fox knew all along that they were vying for this 30% and then putting it on the big stick was a way for them to get a better deal somehow. That's, hey, Indy, look, we'll take care of you. Come on, give Daddy a deal. Come on. I don't know. That's that. And if I'm saying something that's illegal, no, I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything illegal. I just wonder, maybe this has been in the works for a long time. Well, it had to have been to be a 30% interest in that.
Yep.
And maybe the preferential treatment to IndyCar makes a little more sense now, because the feedback I was getting when I talked to people at the racetrack and saw the product on TV is NASCAR became far lower on their priority list once Fox got a smaller portion of this new contract. And now it seems to be making a little more sense. So we'll keep following that there. The other thing, too, if anybody's worried about impropriety, which that was the first thing I thought of, is, the racing series owned by the networks, then this thought popped into my head as we began this discussion today. TV already owns NASCAR. TV already owns IndyCar. And by owns, I mean they have such a controlling interest because they are the biggest sponsor in motorsports. They're the ones cutting the 9 and 10-figure checks, okay, as a collective, TV. So TV already has a say over the playoffs. We mentioned those earlier. TV already has a say over a Bristol dirt race. That's what they should do. Let's cover Dover in dirt and put Indy cars on it or something. All right, come on, Fox. I mean, that's what I'm waiting on. So I'm not too worried about impropriety because Penske already owns the series, and Penske has 4 cars in the field every week, or 3 cars, or however many it is. All right, let's move on. Last thing here, and this isn't so much to comment and say a bunch of opinions and talk for 10 minutes on over what we used to do. We had so much saved up this week. We want to express thoughts and prayers to Stuart Friesen. Devin, you were there Friday night. Stuart Friesen finished what? 3rd or top 5?
3rd or 2nd. It was
okay. That had top 5 finish. Then what happened after Friday's race?
Well, it was 40th birthday on Friday.
200th career start.
Yep. 40th birthday. And then got DQ'd late Friday night from the truck race.
Height issue.
Yep. Ride height issue. And then he was racing, I think, in a sprint car race in Canada.
Correct.
Over the weekend. And
Modified
he got
race.
Involved in a very serious crash and was hurt in that crash.
That is correct. At Autodrome Drummond, I believe on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, he flipped almost out of the track and then just got absolutely careened into by another car. It looks similar to me, and Dan knows this maybe even more than you, Devin. It looks similar to me to Michael Waltrip's wreck at Bristol and how the car just exploded in 1990, where basically Waltrip was just sitting in the middle of the racetrack at Bristol in that Xfinity Series race or practice. It looked like that. Here's the latest update. And so Stuart Friesen had multiple pelvic fractures, legs broken. Oh no, it just went away. Hold on. Sorry, the post refreshed. Let me pull it back up. Excuse me. Here's his wife, Jessica, who's raced in the truck series before with him, by the way, for the Halmar Friesen racing team. Here's what she said about number 52 driver in truck, Stuart Friesen, who, by the way, won Michigan a few weeks ago and is in the truck playoffs technically. Well, listen to this. Stuart has successfully made it back to the United States and has been admitted to a level 1 trauma center in New York. Stuart's injuries are extensive, and we're thankful that we've been able to get him to a place that has the experience necessary to complete all of the surgeries, plural, that he needs. We're beyond grateful for Dr. Maresca and the staff at Canton Postham Hospital for helping us initiate the trauma transfer back to the U.S., along with the amazing crew at Arkawansney Mohawk Ambulance, who did an incredible job keeping Stuart stable and comfortable during his transfer. As these things progress, I'll do my best to continue keeping you updated. Our family continues to be overwhelmed by all of the amazing support we've received. Your prayers and well wishes have encouraged us as we work through Stuart's road to recovery. This will likely not be a quick journey, but we continue to work to get Stuart back at the top of his game on track where he belongs. And that's his wife, Jessica, on Stuart Friesen's Facebook page. So I pass that along to say we wish nothing but well to Stuart Friesen, 41 years old, just turned 41. He had a tough situation earlier this year. Where's it? Talladega, somewhere where he got crashed out, and he just goes, I don't know if I want to keep doing this anymore. And then what does he do? He goes out and wins Michigan. He almost won Atlanta, the Echo Park Speedway race, barely lost that to Kyle Busch, and he was going to be in the playoffs, but that's a distant thought now. It's going to be to Stuart race again, not to Stuart race in 2 weeks, right? Dan, I don't know if you saw the video or not, but certainly mad respect for a veteran driver and of course, veteran credited, young, old, good or bad. You just hate to see this.
Yeah, you do. And thoughts and prayers are out definitely to the family because you do not want to see this happen anytime, any place. And it is difficult at best to deal with this stuff and understand what it's really all about. But it's these cars, you do not realize, especially open wheel, and how dangerous this stuff is, and I don't know that I could do the same things that other drivers do, where you race in a full bodied car and then you go drive in the open wheels, and because it just seems like that the crashes, as spectacular as we've seen some of the crashes be, that fewer people are injured than what you see the outcome of a lot of these crashes.
Yeah, it's tough. I was just thinking about it a lot, and it's not that he almost died or something like that, but when somebody's life changes like that, like a terrible car crash, and as a traffic reporter, Devin, all we think about mainly is, does it cause traffic and did the people survive? We don't think about if they have a years-long recovery. We don't think about if they have a traumatic brain injury, which this doesn't appear to be that. I'm not just saying examples. Devin, I guess you were there at Lucas Oil Raceway Park, and to me, when I've seen something happen to a driver that I've just seen in person, because didn't you get a 101 with Stewart after the race? So I mean, how does that? This isn't about you or me or Dan, but how does that affect you when you were just talking to someone and then their life changed less than 48 hours later?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. It's just kind of I just think it was the weekend from hell for him.
Yeah.
Got DQ'd on his birthday, and then got in a serious wreck.
Yeah,
it stinks.
Yeah, but what it does to the dynamics, not only of you, the driver, and what you're going through, but the dynamics of the whole family and what's going on within your world. That's the thing that you don't hear about. You hear about the accident, you hear about the injuries, and you hear what is put out, and you want it to be positive. You want it to be. It's just like you a minute ago when you said, "Oh no," and I'm thinking, what did you just read? And you had lost the feed, and I'm thinking, okay, it's something worse. But there's your life is pretty much moment by moment of the things that are happening around you, and having to deal with this. And it alters your life for a period, for a short period, for a long period. And this is not what's put out there in the media, that how devastating this is to the whole world around you as that person and yourself going through all of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that matters here, it's not that Stuart Friesen's going to run the playoffs or even what the 52 truck does. And the trucks are off this weekend while Cup and the Xfinity are in Iowa. So they get another week to decide who's going to drive and that kind of thing. And I'm sure that conversation has well been had, because they're looking at who's going to drive this for weeks and months, not who's going to drive this next week. So what matters way more than all of that, of course, though, is his well-being and Jessica's well-being. And I don't know the rest of their family situation, but that was a team that, while they spend a lot of money and have big affiliations, is a one-off team. They're not part of the super team. They're not Tricon Garage. They're not Thor Sport, although they've struggled this year. They're not McAnally Hilgeman Racing. It's just them, the 52, and every once in a while the 62. So just tremendous thoughts there to Stuart Friesen. We hope to see him back as a human, regardless of if he's a driver or not. We just hope to see him back and being Stuart very soon there. And for those that don't know, last thing about that, and then we'll start to wrap up the show. Stuart Friesen races in dirt all the time, year-round, multiple days a week. I want to say it was in Atlanta, Devin, Echo Park Speedway, because the race was delayed. They were talking about, is he going to make it in time for his Saturday dirt race? Oh no, the trucks didn't race this past time. There was a race recently, I can't remember where it was, and they were like worried that he was not going to make his dirt race in New York, or he had to come in late at night or something to the truck race. So this is a big part of his life, and nonetheless, so I hope he doesn't have all of that part that he really enjoys taken away. All right, so we've covered a ton today. We've gone to Indianapolis. Of course, we talked about Stuart Friesen. We did a little Xfinity silly season stuff and hope the best for Josh Williams there. Talked about Fox buying. I said 30% earlier. I just looked at the release again to make sure I had it right. It's actually a full 1/3 interest, 33% interest.
33
That Roger Penske said this is supposed to help us with the growth trajectory of the sport of IndyCar. I'm sure cash infusion, a creativity infusion as well. We covered that, and we've talked about several other things. A big old show. We thank you for sticking with us here over an hour and 20 minutes. Now, Dan, I know you and I both like to poke fun at AI, but there's a feature in this program, Riverside, we use to record, where afterwards I could use AI to edit out all the breaths, the ums, the pauses, and it actually saves us about 7 minutes every episode. So when I say we're at an hour and 25 minutes now, we might actually be just at an hour and 18. But hey, nonetheless, we are thankful for that. Because
yeah, but
I'm
this
not doing
is
all
what
that
worries
work,
me
I'll
the
tell you
most is it may edit me out totally.
Yeah, I
Not
might
if
not
I
agree with Dan's thoughts.
That's it. AI, sir, this was a non-compliant thought. So we thank you all for sticking with us here, but we do want to do one quick 5 to go final thought before we pull her into the garage here. So, Devin, you first, man, especially having come off the road here this weekend.
About to post a clip on the 5 to go Facebook and YouTube page from Saturday about Brad Keselowski talking about him and his rivalry really kind of waning over the past couple of years and citing that both of the performances have gone down and it's really
with him and Kyle
rivalry
Busch,
where it's non-existent now. So I thought that was really interesting for Keselowski to touch on that and check it out. It's probably already out by the time this episode's been posted.
I want to give a special shout out to Devin because you're so much better at mapping this stuff out, creating graphics, really better than me in every sense about this. That's why I'm telling the world, pay my boy, okay? Give my man some work, all right? For all 17 of our listeners, give my man some work, okay? Devin, great work with that, and I love that you're sprinkling these throughout the week because that takes a lot of discipline for sure. Dan, what about you?
Just looking forward to these last races that are left and seeing who makes the cut for the playoffs. And
yeah,
I thought I was surprised before. Indy was another surprise for me.
No doubt. Bubba Wallace was not on a lot of bingo cards, but he unloaded fast, finished in the right spot there, and takes a lot of pressure off because I was starting to think, man, how many more seasons does he get of 17th in points before, and he's got the sponsorship, but I was with that too. By the way, another thing in playoff bubbles, Xfinity has just a few races left till their playoffs begin. 10-point bubble difference between 11th in points, Jeb Burton, and 13th, Harrison Burton. 12th in points is Nick Sanchez, who's won a race. The cousins Burton fighting for the final playoff spot in Xfinity with Ryan Sieg only 10 points behind Harrison Burton. So that's going to be fun to watch unfold. Hey, final thought for me is this. I love multiple viewpoints. All about it. And I was going to put a video message in our Facebook group, and I never did this week on our 5 to Go podcast. We get a lot of comments from people not in our Facebook group. So if you're in the Facebook group and you're a well-behaved little boy or girl, thank you. I will not tolerate racism in there, okay? I will tolerate criticism. We will tolerate negativity. But the moment you start using words like token and things like that, which, you could argue is that racist or not, well, I'm saying I'm throwing the yellow flag and saying it is. If I see it, I'm hiding it or deleting it, okay? This is not, there are way too many other places that you and your Neanderthal racist can go be. You're not going to do it in the 5 to Go podcast Facebook group. And that's not about Bubba Wallace only. That's about any person, Suarez, man, woman, whoever. We're not taking it, all right? So I'm not here to overpraise Bubba Wallace either. He has his faults. But there's nothing you can really take away from that win and knock it down so many notches. We don't need that there. So I was going in. And there was only a few of them. Now, Devin, you do a good job with these clips. They have a lot of legs all over the internet, so random people. I got to give it to somebody, though. They wrote rigged on there, which is not racist. That's just critical, okay? But they wrote rigid instead of rigged. They wrote RIDGED, rigged, which is probably just an autocorrect, to which I replied, you're right. Those race cars are pretty sharp, bro. So, yeah. I don't think it was rigged either, but go for it. Go prove it, please. Just like the 2020 election. Okay, excuse me. All right. Hey, 5 to Go podcast is over. Be sure we're on Apple, Spotify. Dan is ready to hang up on me. We're Apple, Spotify, YouTube, GoPRN.com. We're so grateful you joined. For Devin Kupka, Dan Elliott, I'm Doug Turnbull. We'll be back hopefully earlier than Thursday next week to recap the proceedings in Iowa and look ahead toward Watkins Glen or wherever else in the wild blue yonder we take this thing. So thank you for being with us. God bless you. Thanks for putting up with me